The superstar poster child of the environmentalist movement in recent years, Greta Thunberg, found a new cause. She found that cause after October 7th when Palestinian savages marched into Israeli villages, kibbutzim, and a music festival, slaughtered people, tortured people, burned people alive, raped people. She decided that is another cause that I want to support, and that is my new cause. I haven't heard her talk much about environmentalism recently. I'm sure she does. I maybe don't pay enough attention to her. But this is what she's showing up to now. She shows up with a keffiyeh, the scarf that Palestinian terrorist Yasser Arafat made famous and popular among those who like the idea of slaughtering the remaining Jews who weren't slaughtered in the Holocaust. But is there any connection? Is it somehow consistent with her previous activism that she is now supporting these savages? We're gonna discuss that today. I'm joined by Daniel. Welcome to the Daily Objective, day 220 of the war in Israel. I sometimes forget because it has been 220, as we've said. If it's 220, it's about 218 too many. But it at least gives Greta and some angry youth something to do in their ample spare time. Daniel.
Yeah, so she was arrested again. She went to Eurovision to Malmo to basically protest Israel's participation in the Eurovision, and her claim being that Israel is committing genocide. I watched one clip of her. She has that typical pro-Palestinian, pro-Hamas rhetoric when you have to mention genocide at least like 5 times in 1 minute to make your point. Was something I didn't like, and it's whenever something happens with Greta, you see the standard criticism, usually amounting to "shut up, woman" or "she's too young to talk about anything," which again I don't like. Like, I don't like her escaping the responsibility just because of some like external factor. You have to realize, she, like, whenever she protests either against private companies using the environment, using what we have in the nature to basically better human life, or when she protests Israel's defending themselves from, as you mentioned, savagery that happened on October 7th. I think she accepts the total moral blame that is to come from such actions. I think I checked out recently, she's only slightly younger than me, and I don't think whatever I say here should be dismissed, or I shouldn't get let's say, blame for if someone disagrees with me just because I'm young.
Yeah, now we do, there's a reason why there are legal differences between when you're adult and you're not an adult. And we should remember that she became famous when she was 14. Like, she started this school strike, kids not going to school. I remember not doing that when I was a kid. I never got famous for it, but uh, yeah, then it was definitely we should not listen to this person. She is too young, and she is at an age where she is at best, repeating what older people are saying to her. And I think she still does that to an extent. But yeah, as an adult, she does bear responsibility, at least legally. Now, Michael asked here in the chat, isn't she simply engaged in free speech? I don't know the particulars of why she was arrested, and I didn't think to look it up for this episode because we generally are talking about, the connection between her, seemingly maybe disconnected ideologies or disconnected causes and why they are connected. But I will say there were many, many protesters. I don't know how many of them were arrested. And it is, Daniel told me before the episode that she has been arrested 4 times so far. It could be that she does things that
I think this was the fourth time.
Oh, yeah, this was the fourth time. So it could be that she does things that, in these protests, there are things that are considered free speech. There's a whole other issue of should you block the roads to promote your ideas? I think not. We've done a show about it, but yeah, in this case, she was arrested for something, but also even without her being arrested, her presence there is a statement, and it's a statement of an ideology, which remember she became famous for stating her ideology on a different matter. So Daniel, any thoughts on that, the connection between environmentalism and supporting the Palestinians?
So I have a couple quotes for her from her. Maybe we should just mention them. I'm not sure if we'll have anything to comment on, but just to make you guys realize that yeah, this was actually protesting Israel, not just some general protest. I'm here to show we think it is outrageous and inexcusable for Eurovision to let Israel participate while committing genocide. This was from, again, a short interview she gave where she mentioned genocide like 3 times. And another quote was, "We will not accept that a country currently committing genocide is allowed a platform to artwash themselves. The world cannot remain silent in a genocide. Everyone who must use their voice and speak up against Israel's crimes and occupation." So you see, nothing new here. She pretty much just again repeats everything. That she's always been this sort of like a mouthpiece. But again, once you're an adult, once you have a certain amount of growing up, you should stand by your words and you should accept the responsibility for your words. If it means arresting, if it means getting arrested, or if it means getting the moral blame for it. I can go to environmentalism, or do you want to comment on it?
No, go ahead and take over.
So first of all, when we talk about environmentalism, because we talk about it, we make fun of it a lot, but I don't think we mention many times what is the exact problem with it. And I think when we talk about environmentalism and the problem with it is these people view it as what we would say almost as an axiom, as like this is the starting point and everything else goes from that. And basically what it means is, in a sense, we as an objectivist would be considered environmentalists from a sense we want to build environment fit for human survival. We want to, and when talking about it, the environment as it is terrible for human survival. If you go pre-industrial age, the human expectancy was something like 30 years. You would die from simple diseases that we can now just cure. And generally, it was not safe for humans. But when these people talk about environment, they don't connect it with the humans. And how it is good for us. The way they view environment is as a sort of like a pristine nature. It should be kept as it is. We humans are just basically invaders. We are not part of this environment. We are almost like an aliens that the only thing we can do for the environment is destroy it. So the best thing to do is actually for humans to go extinct. And I'll talk a bit later about the different connections. But what do you think, Razi?
Well, I think I should have remembered to bring, I always wave around books that I think people should read, and Alex Epstein's books are perfect for this episode, but I keep them at home, so I don't have them here. But yeah, Robin says in the chat she should call for Israel to cut off all power to Gaza. That's a good thing in her eyes, right? And that's the thing with these people. They're making demands that I'm sure to some extent at least they know if those demands were met, human life would be much worse. And that's kind of consistent, with supporting the Palestinians. Human life would be worse if the Palestinians got their way, regardless of whether it's Hamas or Fatah in power. They would kill all the Jews. They would oppress their own people, and their people don't seem to really mind that. So. Yeah, with environmentalism, it is you said objectivists could use the word environmentalist because we want a better environment. I mean, objectivists could use lots of other words. We're progressives as well. We're for progress. Progressives just happen to be against it. We're definitely liberals. Um, but yeah, environmentalists want to have nature minus the human element of it, because humans are acting, as naturally as any other, any other animal when we use fossil fuels, when we use whatever is the best that's available to us within our means of survival, which is our mind. Whatever is best available to us, we use, and that's where environmentalists come in and say, no, we shouldn't be able to use that because it supposedly somehow harms, I don't know, other species or the planet, as if the planet is a thing outside of the context of the value that it provides to its inhabitants. It's a thing that we should value. So. Yeah, I think Greta's views are anti-human when she advocates for environmentalism. They're anti-human when she advocates for the Palestinians.
Uh, Sorry, I was looking up something. So now to the connection basically with terrorists. First, I should, the idea of environmentalists, doing terrorist act or at least domestic terrorist act is nothing new. I mean, you probably heard about the Unabomber, the Ted Kaczynski guy, who was not only environmentalist but the actual extreme or the actual logical conclusion of environmental. He was a primitivist. He was for an idea of basically destroying or getting rid of the industrial society and, in a sense, going back to the nature, which is actually the goal of environmentalism. It is destroying the human civilization as it exists today. It is destroying the modern society. And in that way, anyone, and as I explained earlier, because this is an axiom, because this is their starting point, that anything that helps them achieve this point is good. It's not about human life. It's not about, progress. It's not about even, future for our children as they talk about. It's never about any of those. It's always just about preserving the nature as it is. And in that sense, anyone who is against modern industrial societies or Western societies, such as Hamas, is their ally. They and I have even a funny anecdote. They are also really good at recycling. They take anything they get anything they can get their hands on to make rockets to destroy, to basically attack Israel. There is you can look it up. There's this rocket they made called Kassan rocket that was used during the Second Intifada. That the main components were sugar and fertilizer. So even when people talk about Israeli embargo on things like cookies or fertilizer, it is because they actually make everything they can into rockets. So that's why, yeah, Israel doesn't have only embargo on, let's say, some just to prevent like an actual weapons, because these people will make anything they can into rockets. And yeah, this is basically, I think, the main reason why you see environmentalists or people like Greta either directly participating in eco-terrorism, trying to destroy, let's say, some cars, try to stop cars moving on the highways. They try anything they can to basically stop the industrial society to function. And the ultimate goal of it is to completely stop it. And organizations such as Hamas is a great ally in that aspect for them.
Yeah. Thank you, Jonathan, and thank you, Bonnie, for your super chats. There was a few comments here I wanted to read. Nastasia says the idea of holding the contest in Malmo is about as ridiculous as holding it in Molenbeek. Molenbeek, the very Muslim neighborhood of Brussels. Yes, but anywhere you held it this year, there would be many protesters. I mean, yeah, Sweden choosing Malmo of all places. I think they chose Malmo before October 7th. I'm actually sure of that. So, they but yeah, the idea, the problematic or the problem here isn't Eurovision being held in Malmo. It's Malmo being what it is, and Swedish people living with that and accepting it while thinking that the problem in the world is Israel rather than everybody else in the Middle East and some in their own country. So it's very it's a sign of where we're going. Race says in the chat, if she would divorce herself from her worldview, I'd take her out. Uh, as in on a date. I'm guessing is what he meant. Yeah, look, uh, it's a long journey, but it's also it's telling that again, yeah, she's an adult, she's responsible for her views now, not so much when she started the school protest, but it's telling that she's stuck with the views that she was brought up on, never really seemed to question them. It's something that we see more and more now with youth that they seemingly don't want to have a mind of their own, and I think it's troubling.
So there was a question or a comment in the chat talking about if these we've lost Razi about if these people actually believe basically believe in the ideas of environmentalism, actually believe that human life would be better. And if we just talk about someone like Greta, and when you look up her like super early speeches in the UN, how dare you, all of those. I mean, just imagine if you've been taught what she's been taught and believing in it. I mean, pretty much every year you will hear about how the world is going to end in 5 years. There's irreversible changes happening now, and we can only change it now. And this dates back decades that basically the world has ended already like 15 times probably. I mean, if you actually believe this is the alternative, then yeah, you try to do whatever you can to prevent it. I mean, if this was true that there could be like something happening now that would make like irreversible changes, and human life as we know it would end in like 5 to 10 years, I think we would be in like what can we do about it? But the problem is it's not the every time they predict something, it never happens, it never goes that way. And I think it's much more important to focus on why do they still believe this is going to happen, instead of do they believe it or not?
Yeah, it's not that the predictions just don't come true. It's that the exact opposite comes true when it comes to how humans live. And again, Alex Epstein is really great at this. You can watch his videos, by the way. There are many videos on YouTube, and you should definitely read his books. But yeah, experts who some of whom have been considered experts for decades, not campaigners and activists like Greta, but scientists who have been considered experts for decades have made predictions. The exact opposite happens, and they keep making worse and worse predictions. And people buy into that narrative because it fits the policies that they want to push for. Just like with what we see when we watch the reporting from Gaza, and we know how much of it is pure lies, how much of it is made up by Hamas and delivered as as news for Western news anchors to read from the teleprompter. They do that because they want to push the narrative, because they want to push such protests. They want to see wherever an Israeli goes to compete in a song competition, in a sporting competition. They want to see protests. They want to see that person be at the very least as uncomfortable as possible, possibly not allowed to compete, possibly worse than that. Thank you, Frank, for the super chat. Frank says we should all be like humans in Planet of the Apes. Daniel, you read fiction, so maybe you will understand the reference better than me. I know
Well,
both, but
as with many pop cultural things like that, I know very little actually about them, but I watched the Simpsons or Futurama episode which parodied that one. So I know a little bit about that from the parody, but I haven't seen Planet of the Apes. From what I understand, it's, they, humans arrive on this world which they think has been, or it's like a new world, but later they learned it's actually human society that has been taken over by apes. But I don't know much more about that.
Thank you, Roland. This reference I do get. He says the world is going to end on December 21st, 2012. Mark my words. Yeah, this I believe was in the Mayan calendar, right?
Yeah,
I remember.
the Simpson episode was also made about that, so I know that.
Well, yeah, I just remember it because people were actually freaking out. So yeah, people again choose to believe what they want. Christian says Greta could become the female Nikos at ARCUK LOOOL if she finally turns from Marxism to objectivism. Yeah, Nikos turned from Marxism to objectivism, but I'm pretty sure Nikos as a Marxist was better spoken than Greta. I'm not sure. We'd probably have her on ARCUK just for the views, but the way she expresses her views as an environmentalist is not impressive to me, and it's not just because I reject her ideology. It's just it's too leaning heavily on the emotions whenever she actually gets questioned. Somebody I think also suggested a debate between her oh yeah, that was Christian as well, a debate between her and Alex Epstein. I mean, that's gonna be, I'm gonna feel bad, and I'm not like, let's always side with the underdog, and I'm obviously gonna be on Alex's side, but I'm gonna feel bad watching that. That's not, it's in combat sports, you don't have heavyweights fighting featherweights for a reason. And I'm not sure I want to see that. Again, she is young enough that there is the thing that the younger you are, the more excuses you have. Now, as an adult, legally, you have no excuse to commit crimes, or you're going to be tried as an adult. But yeah, I think Ayn Rand famously, I could be mistelling the story, but there was a story where Peacock said that on his 40th birthday, Ayn Rand gave him the best present he ever got. She said, "I can finally take you seriously." There is a thing to life experience and so on, and it could be that Greta at some point, because in her case it's a bit different because she's so invested and probably so shielded in her current position that it would take great mental effort, intellectual curiosity. But it is possible if the son of Hamas did it, Greta is in a better position to do it than him.
Yeah, maybe someone should find Greta and give her a book. I'm trying to remember what was the book, the first book that Nikos read. I'm thinking it was The New Left. I think that was the one, but maybe
Return of the Primitive was the current title of it. Return of the Primitive.
Oh, which the subtitle is The Anti-Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
So I think this would be the perfect book for Greta. And something else I read in the comment, I think it was Bonnie. She was making fun of recycling and basically opposing recycling on purpose. And that's another thing that's basically, completely taken out of context for the environmentalists. Because what is the purpose of recycling? You're basically trying to reuse materials to save on energy. And one of the biggest recyclers in the world was someone like Rockefeller, who made sure that every single part of the crude oil could be used for something to save on money and energy. But when you hear, people talk about recycling today, it's religious. It's just, you have to do it, and you have to do it with everything. You have to do it with something like glass, which is pretty much we can make infinite amount of glass. There is no need for recycling glass, maybe in some specific instances. And when you do it, you are actually hurting the goal you're trying to achieve, because usually the energy you put into trying to recycle something abundant like glass, or I think there are a couple different materials, is you hurting your goal more than helping. So yeah, whenever you talk about environmentalism or things like this, you should always ask, like, okay, what is the actual context? What are we trying to achieve? Is this just a religious, you have to do it because you have to do it, or is there a reason for it? And if you're struggling to find a reason, then you should try to look into it and see, okay, what are we actually doing here? Are we trying to create some society which is fit for human survival, which is great for humans, or are we just trying to basically get rid of the humans because we have this original sin coming from Christianity that basically condemns us forever?
Yeah, Frank explained that in Planet of the Apes, the humans were primitive with nature and the apes were industrial. Well, the thing is, only one of those is possible, and I think if environmentalists had their way, that is how we would live. Robert Nasser says, Greta is not a child. At 21 years old, Greta is a woman. I know we infantilize everyone these days, but for Pete's sake, 21 isn't young. Mozart had written one-third of his works by the time he was 21. Yes, and Alma Deutscher, I believe, is younger than Greta, and she understands this. She takes the human side of this conflict from what I've seen. Yeah, there are definitely no excuses. It's easier to get things wrong at a younger age, but again, she it's hard to even say she got things wrong initially at the age of 14. She just accepted blindly whatever it was that was handed to her, and we see the results. Um, you know, environmentalists, just to wrap it up, environmentalists for Palestine kind of make sense in the sense that neither side, neither makes sense, so it's consistently wrong. Gays for Palestine or LGBTQIA plus for Palestine is a different thing. It's really, we've made fun of it on this show. It's because of how stupid the idea is, but it is an actual movement. It's caught on. It's caught on in large parts of the gay community, certainly in this country, and we should probably issue a trigger alert for the reality show today because YouTube only lets you use so many characters in the title of a video. We called it LGBTQ plus for Palestine and not all the letters that I'm sure we're missing out on. Anybody who feels offended, well, go to Gaza and tell them, and go seek asylum there. Thanks, Daniel. Thanks everybody for watching. LGBTQ, Understanding LGBTQ plus for Palestine. That's the title. That show starts in a couple of minutes. We'll see you there.
Bye bye.